Welcome to Together We Connect. What is Together We Connect? Together to Connect. We are a chat show that we bring people to share their stories, because we truly believe that when we share our stories, we can connect. This year has been a big ton of events for me personally. I haven't been doing as many interviews as I have the past years due to I lost my little baby boy in February. So I took the time out to grieve. And I want to dedicate this chat show to him. And I can't think more of a person like Mandy Herold, who we're going to learn a bit more about, just to share about, because she talks about how it is important as a parent and teacher to have role models. And I'm not going to say too much, but I can't think more of a remarkable, sensational person. And for me personally, she's a role model, and I can just see out there like how she just does so much for the education community. So Mandy, can you tell us a bit about your background and your story to where you are now and what you are doing?
Thank you, Tova. Thank you so much for inviting me to your chat show. And I want to echo back how grateful I am that you have invited me on, and how excited I am to share with your listeners just a little bit more about my journey and how I got to be where I'm sitting today on the 18th of June, 2023. I just want to double check with you before I go on. Is the sound okay?
Yeah, no, sound great, Mandy.
So I am Joburg born and bred. I grew up in Johannesburg. I went to school in Joburg. Actually, interesting. I've only ever lived and worked and gone to university and gone to school within like a 5-kilometer radius of the hospital where I was born. So I have had adventures elsewhere, but I've pretty much stayed in this Joburg northern suburbs area. I knew from when I was little that I wanted to be a teacher. And so I went to Greenside High, and then I studied teaching at the Johannesburg College of Education. I was actually the last year to graduate from JCE, as it was formerly known as JCE. It was amalgamated into the Wits School of Education. And so I then went on after my 4-year HDE, that's a higher diploma in education in pre-primary and in foundation phase. I then started teaching, and I taught grade 000 in 2002. And Tova, I didn't enjoy it. I was like, oh my word, this is all I've ever wanted to do. And now I've got my very own classroom, and I had a complete crisis of identity and just thinking, oh my word. Anyway, as it happened, there were other extenuating factors. It's never just one thing, right? So I stepped away.
All beginnings are a bit hard, and there's so many different, rocky things. Yeah.
So I stepped away, and I did a few other things. I went overseas. I worked at an advertising agency, and certainly the corporate spaces that I was involved in were they never filled my soul in the way that the classroom did. So after a short while, I went back. I didn't commit to a full-time job. I did a locum at St. John's in grade 0 for somebody who was on leave. And I fell in love with these 5- and 6-year-old little boys. And that was it for me. I was there for 6 years, and then went on to teach at St. Catherine's, and then to have my first position of headship of educational leadership and management at the Ridge School in Westcliff, where I was for 12 years. And certainly part of the journey over the last few years have been falling in love with social and emotional learning, and understanding on a very, very deep level that until we can help children feel safe and feel connected, until they feel safe and connected, until they feel like they have a sense of belonging in a classroom space, they cannot function optimally in an academic space. And I think schools often pride themselves, like if you look at their websites, they put up their distinction rate and their performing arts and their sporting achievements. And Tova, I just know that we have to do it better in this space of social and emotional learning. And so it's now I've stepped away from a full-time position in a school to pursue this, my dream of coaching and consulting, of partnering with all stakeholders in the school environment, not just the teachers, but the parents as well, and the children, to share this message around conscious discipline and creating that safety and connection so the children can problem solve.
Sure. Wow, Mandy, that's so fascinating and so intriguing that like you really like zoned in and you really want to help, not in order to help the children, you realize that actually, there's a few steps back. And can you tell us a bit more about that? That you chose the word safety. Can you describe what safety means within what you're doing and the coaching model?
Of course. And it goes back to how our brains are wired, Tova. So this philosophy of conscious discipline, it's brain-based, it's research-backed, and it's trauma responsive. And it's a comprehensive self-regulation program. So that's all quite a mouthful. So when we just look at it on a very basic level, our brains are pattern seeking and survival oriented. So our brains are looking for a sense of predictability, for a sense of routine and structure. And that's why children love to do the same thing, especially very little ones. They love to read the same stories again and again because our brains are pattern seeking machines. And so with the sense of safety, that is at the core of how our brains are wired. So when we look at that reptilian brain, that brain stem, that primal brain that needs a sense of safety. And this goes back to, caveman days of, if you were triggered by a threat, if there was something that was following you, you had limited skills, right? You could fight it, you could run away, or you could freeze. And when I teach the children this model around the safety, I use an example of like two dogs. So if two dogs are fighting, this dog is attacking this dog. Dog A is attacking dog B, for those who are listening. And dog A attacks dog B. Dog B can either fight back, which is fight, or flight, or run away, or freeze, or surrender. Right. And we see that in the wild with animals pretending like they're dead, play dead. Ooh. And so, if you just stay still and freeze for long enough, then the danger will pass. So that sense of safety that we need in our brain, it's not only physical safety. We don't only need, and because I'm sure you'll agree with me, when you go into a new environment, somewhere you haven't been before, you're scanning your body, like you don't have to think about it. Your body is scanning for any dangers. Do I see familiar faces? What may be an exit strategy if I'm feeling overwhelmed? It's like there's so much that happens on an unconscious level. And so it's not just the physical safety that our brains need, it's the psychological safety. And that's where the co-regulation come in. So when children have a safe person who can help them feel safe in a co-regulated space, that brain is then primed for learning. That brain then feels safe so that it can then move on to other things. Does that make?
Yeah, we're getting an understanding of actually, before we even start learning, the child has to have that foundation, that really positive, that they just feel safe, because that whole environment can change the whole learning experience from our days. Like, that's incredible, Mandy, that you're on this mission. So can you tell us how you're going about achieving this mission of children?
Absolutely. And again, I want to just emphasize for your listeners, Tova, this is not complicated. We don't have to understand the neuroscience. We don't have to understand and be a neurologist to get this. What is the quickest way that our brains get to safety?
Yeah,
By taking a deep breath. So take a deep breath with me, everybody, as you're listening. Take a deep breath in with me. And hold it. And then do a long, slow exhale. And second deep breath in. And hold it. And slow exhale. And last beautiful deep breath in. And hold for a moment or two. And slow exhale. Tova, that is the quickest way that we get our brains to feel safe. So what happens? Carry on.
With your hands on your chest, is there a specific reason for that?
I like to put my hand on my chest. Actually, when I'm teaching children this breathing technique, I ask them to put one hand on their tummies and one hand on their chests. Because actually, when you see, we almost unlearn how to take that deep breath, because when you say to children, take a deep breath, they go, and it's all in their shoulders. And it's not actually, it's in our abdomens, it's in our bellies. And I'm sure if anybody's listening, if they've got a singing background, it's about moving that diaphragm. So as you breathe in, that abdomen expands. So we say breathe in, have your belly go out. And then when you breathe out, your belly contracts and you suck in those tummy muscles. And when we do that, Tova, the diaphragm, that beautiful membrane underneath our lungs, that moves up and down. It massages our internal organs. It stimulates this part of our brain, this prefrontal cortex, this thinking part of our brain, and it sends a message to our brain that our bodies are a safe place to be. So what I teach children and adults, because this actually is not about the children, it's about the adults. It's about the adults. Adult first, child second. You can't teach skills you don't have. So we say A, B, C, adult before child. Wow. So we can't expect our children to feel a sense of composure if we're shouting at them. We can't expect our children to feel a sense of composure if we say, you know, this is for marks, this test is for marks, and if you don't get this percentage of marks for this assessment, it's going to have a consequence. When we do that, and I can see your face is like, oh, we trigger that brain. That brain goes into a sense, like we push that brain into the lower parts of our brain where the brain is saying, am I safe? And traditionally in schools, Tova, we've thought if we are just scary enough, if we just threaten the children enough with the right punishment or code of conduct or threat, then the children will say, I will obey. But actually, it suppresses them. It pushes them down into the lower centers of their brain where they cannot function optimally. And so instead of having that extrinsic motivation of, if you don't do this, this will happen, or even, because it swings both ways, right? It's the extrinsic, whether it's the punishment or the reward, it's still you wanting children to do something for something outside of themselves instead of saying, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And this is probably a bigger topic, so I'm going to pull myself back.
Sure. No, there's so much insights going on here, because now that we've sort of discussed the elements of safety, what's the next step to connect into the child?
Right. Step one, safety. How do we get to safety? Taking those deep breaths. And Tova, for teachers that are listening, even if the children are not actively breathing, their mirror neurons are watching you breathe. It's the same reason why we yawn, and it's the same reason why we smile when it's the mirror neurons in our brain unconsciously doing that same thing. So how do we help to create that sense of safety? And this is counterintuitive often, because when you get a fright, what do? You hold your breath. So this is about unlearning so that we can relearn and help to send a message to our brain that our bodies are a safe place to be. Once we have that foundation of I'm safe, then the next step is to feel loved and feel connected. And so how do we do that? How do we create that sense of connection with the children in our space and with other adults? Because this need for connection never changes. It's the same with tiny little people, and it's the same with old people. I'm going to see my 83-year-old dad today, and I know that he's going to want to connect with me in the same way as a little person would. So our need for connection never changes. And so what is connection? We talk about it in conscious discipline connection as having 4 components. And I want to preface this with, culturally, it may not feel appropriate to put all these components together. So if this doesn't feel congruent with your listeners, where they come from, where their cultural background is, I'm respectful of the fact that different cultures have different constructs that are comfortable. The research tells us, though, from predominantly from North America, that when we put these 4 components of connection together, so it's eye contact, physical touch, being present in a playful situation, eye contact, touch, being present in a playful situation. Tova, when we put those 4 components of connection together, we also send a message to our brain.
Your eyes touch, and you said, and that was 3, no? Or that's 4?
So it's eye contact, physical touch, being present. So our presence.
Right. Oh, wow.
In a playful situation. And those 4 components of connection help to wire our children's brains for willingness and impulse control. So we call that, we put those 4 components together with children. If you're on their level, if you're looking at them face to face, if you're smiling, just a little bit of, just the muscles that we use in our face to smile help to tell our brains that our bodies are a safe place to be. And with our devices, Tova, we're distracted, right? So when you're giving the children your undivided attention, eye contact, physical touch, whether you're holding them on their shoulders or you're holding their hands or you're close, presence in a playful space, those components of connection make a little bit of joy juice, which is feel-good chemicals in our brain, and that's how we connect with children.
Because I feel like everything you're saying leads to somebody feeling validated, feeling important. Because in today's world, like when we're so busy on our phones, we actually saying you're not that important, and then you're not present in that situation, and you miss so many things. Like I'm trying to think the other day what happened between me and my husband was quite funny. He assumed I asked him something and he responded, and I'm like, I said I'm hot, and he thought I was saying goodnight or something, because he wasn't looking, he was on the phone. And it just kind of showed how much we just wire ourselves to think, okay, our child's just saying this, but on our phone responding actually to what they're saying. So wow, thank you for sharing that, Mandy.
And I know, Tova, from the times that I've been in a classroom environment, I know when I'm fully engaged, when I'm connected, when I'm present, when I'm focused, I'm reading the children's body language, I'm watching, because all behavior is communication. So because their brains are still growing, I'm interpreting their body language. And you can only do that when you're present. And then I would look down at my phone and I'd see a message and my brain's gone somewhere else. And that happens all the time. And the research tells us that actually our brains are only supposed to do one thing at a time. So just being present with you here in this moment is a gift. because I can't have a Zoom with you and be checking my phone and have a Safari tab open with 10,000 things going on. Our brains can't function optimally like that. So just being with you in this moment, being present, eye contact. Okay, we can't do physical touch because we're across the screen, but even in COVID times, we would do Bluetooth high fives and fist bumps, and so you
high five, man.
Yeah, high five, babe, high five. And certainly, as I said, that need for connection never changes. And we know that as far as boundaries and consent are concerned, not everybody is going to want to hug. Not everybody is going to want to, shake hands. So we're respectful, again, of those boundaries. Like post-COVID, I've been saying to people, are you happy? Are you comfortable with a hug? And people have said to me, no. And then I'm respectful of that. But
one thing, funny enough, that COVID did teach me was when people didn't want to shake hands, they did, the elbow fist bump. So that's another way of shaking hands with people.
100%. And when you watch, I'm sorry to generalize, but when you watch men, when they greet each other, they don't necessarily hug, but they kind of shake hands, and they come in and their shoulders connect, they do like a boy hug. because that's what we are wired to do that. And the research also tells us that if we hug heart to heart, which is a little bit odd because my heart is this side and your heart would be this side, so it's almost like a side hug. When our hearts are hugging, that impact is even deeper. So what are those components of connection, Tova, for your listeners? What are the components of connection? Eye contact, touch, presence in a playful situation. And that also doesn't mean, the playfulness. I had one mom in an audience once say to me, Mandy, what do you mean by being playful? Like, do I need to paint my face and giddy up around the room? And I said, no.
Yeah.
So just being playful is just having a little bit of fun. I think we take us as adults, and as teachers and principals and school leaders, we take ourselves very seriously. And actually,
responsibility going on. So to tell a teacher, just have fun. It's very foreign idea.
Yeah, and I know that the times that I was in the car park greeting the children coming in, and I'd wear a hat or an Alice band or a tutu or something, you're sending a message to those little bodies. I don't have to have a facade. I don't have to have it all together, because guess what? No one's got it all together. I'm not saying now push the boundaries and be cheeky. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when we are playful, when the energy shifts from being very strict and conform, and if you don't listen, then X, Y, Z, to saying, you know what, I'm going to put a little bit of music on and we're going to have a little dance party. Even if it's just musical statues, go and stop and go and stop. That stop-go games help children to learn impulse control. So you can have a little bit of fun and be teaching skills at the same time. So
what I love about this whole thing, Mandy, so just to jump in, that we're showing, we're not talking at the children, we're actually modeling how we want the behaviors to go, which is unbelievable. Thank you so much. Really is. Sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely, you're right. It's all in the role modeling. Children, we need to shift from the do as I say, not as I do model, to be the change that we want to see in the world. And so many of our teachers are sort of not, and I'm not being judgmental here, but they sort of if a group of children are being particularly rowdy and loud, and a teacher comes in and says, stop shouting. What's the irony there for that? So I'm shouting at you because you're shouting, but I'm telling you to stop shouting by shouting at you. We can't teach children to behave better by making them feel worse. And I believe that there's a better way. Just coming back to that component, Tova, and you would have seen this on social media. like teachers put a chart outside their classroom and the children line up, and as they come in, then the children choose a greeting. So a high five or a fist bump or a handshake or a hug, and just pausing to connect with that child. Look at the components: eye contact, physical touch, being present in a playful situation, giving them some choice. Those components of connection, you are wiring their brain for safety and connection so that they can learn.
Yeah, that's the aim, that's the end goal. We hope we can get there. Sure, this is wow, this is beyond. This is amazing, Mandy. And I know in the past we spoke about compassion and kindness. How does that come into conscious discipline and connecting to their child?
So it's a brilliant question, and thank you for asking it. When we are in that survival state, when we don't feel safe, what do we want to do? We want to shut down or run away or fight. When we're in our emotional state, we cut the world into us and them. So parents versus teachers, this grade versus that grade, this religion versus that religion, this gender versus that gender. So when we are in our emotional state, when we don't feel connected, it's very much an us and them. And then we can't have kindness, and we can't have compassion, and we can't extend positive intent when we are not feeling safe and we're not feeling connected. So only when we as adults and children, this is the same for adults and children, only when we feel safe, genuinely safe, emotionally, physically, psychologically, only when we feel safe and only when we feel connected can we then extend compassion and kindness and positive intent. And only then will it come from a genuine place of care and love. Because before that, it will just feel false. Like if I say to my child, go and say sorry to that person, and they don't feel safe and they don't feel connected, then they go and say sorry. And what does that mean? Nothing.
Sure.
And so often we judge children, and we are giving them lectures around values instead of, like, values are taught through human interactions, not through the lectures or the sermons that we give. And so your question around kindness and compassion, it's only when we are feeling safe and we're feeling connected and loved, only when we've got that safety and connection can we then access this prefrontal cortex, this thinking part of our brain, and genuinely extend kindness and compassion and positive intent to other people. So those are the building blocks, Tova: safety, connection, problem solving. Safety, connection, kindness. Safety, connection, compassion. Safety, connection, positive intent. Because when you are able to take a deep breath, I'm safe, keep breathing, I can handle this. Only when you feel safe and connected can you then suspend the judgment, extend that positive intent, and believe that everybody is doing the best that they can with what they've got.
I like that. Hey, wow, that's like beyond fascinating and just so special. And it's so nice. It's so real. It's so authentic. Mandy, can you share with us any parents or teachers' feedbacks that they've given you with this model that you have coached them with?
Absolutely, great point. So I recently have been doing some parent coaching with a couple, and they have a 3-year-old, and there were lots of power struggles and big feelings, and really like the parents coming to me and saying, we don't want our child to be a brat. We don't want our child to be overindulged or to be, what's that word that I'm thinking of?
Spoiled or?
Yeah, spoiled. There's another word I'm thinking about. But basically, we don't want our child, if she's behaving like this when she's 3 years old, what is she going to be doing when she's 13? And that just shows that those parents are living in the future. And children can't live in the future. They can only live in the now.
Yeah.
And so what we worked through were understanding some of their triggers, because when those big feelings do come up, and she's 3, right? When does our brain fully develop? When we're 24, 25 years old. So she's got 20 odd years to go until that brain is fully developed. So I gently coached them to say, when your 3-year-old is doing this, this is actually not about your 3-year-old. It's about you. It's about you understanding, what are these triggers? Where do they come from? How do we create that safety? Taking the deep breath, create that connection, and then coach the child through what you want them to do as opposed to what you don't want them to do. And after about 3 or 4 sessions, they said that their power struggles have decreased. They are more connected. They're more self-aware. And when their 3-year-old is watching them, be able to pause and take that deep breath. That's where the learning takes place.
Wow.
And so yeah, I've got loads more stories about that. But again, it's adult first, child second, ABC, adult before child. We can't teach skills we don't have. And so for those parents to have sought my inputs to say, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. How can we do this differently? Yeah. And again, Tove, that's not, you don't wave a magic wand and sing kumbaya on everybody's besties. Like, life is hard, it's messy. And especially parenting and having small children puts a huge strain on marriages and on relationships. And then parents just land up fighting and being in their own power struggle because this parent says, oh, shame, she's just doing this. And another parent's like, I don't want my child to be a brat. And then you find that the fighting between them escalates, which then doesn't create that sense of safety in the small human brain. And so then it's then the behavior escalates, and an escalated adult can never de-escalate an escalated adult can never de-escalate an escalated child. So how do we bring everything, how do we bring it down? By going back to that safety, by taking those 3 deep breaths, by understanding no one can make me angry without my permission. I'm the only one who can be in charge of me.
So, Mandy, just a thought that's come to my mind. When you have that 2-3-year-old throwing a tantrum, is that tantrum down? Like, when it's gotten to that, like, heated stage, do you have any guidance around that?
Yeah, it's all about the co-regulation. And again, you may have seen memes and videos of this on social media where, like, a mum or dad is just sitting on the floor with the child having a tantrum and just breathing. So my advice, if you've got a little person who's having a tantrum, don't say anything. Don't say, what's wrong, my sweetie? What's going on? Or what's made you sad? And what? That brain can't hear. That brain is in that survival state. In the survival state, what do you need? Safety. How do you get safety? Breathing. So upload their distress. Download your calm. Upload their distress. Download your calm.
Wow, that makes so much sense. That's incredible.
So advice, even though my advice is never as good as I think it is, say less. I say to the children, you've got 1 mouth and 2 ears because you need to listen twice as much as you talk, which is not what I've done during this interview.
No, Mandy, we have 2 ears. Us listeners have 2 ears because we need to hear this. We need to the quote, and I don't know if you can help me, the Benjamin Franklin quote of, like,
yes,
what's it? If you teach me and I might learn, but if you involve me, that something like that I'll remember for life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mandy, I mean, you are like role model, our hero. Do you have a role model and a hero?
I do. I have a few. So Dr. Becky Bailey is the creator of Conscious Discipline, and I've had the honor and pleasure of working with her in the US. Another absolute role model for me is Brené Brown.
Oh wow, she's amazing.
Brené Brown, honestly, understanding vulnerability, and yeah, just she's amazing. And then more recently, Dr. Becky Kennedy. Her work is around good inside, how she says they are good children who have made a bad choice. They're not bad children. And so Dr. Becky Kennedy is amazing. And then also Dr. Shafali Tabari. I've got all their books behind me on my shelf. She's got the Conscious Parenting Plan, and she's just written a book about a parenting map. So it would probably be those four: Dr. Becky Bailey, Dr. Brené Brown, Dr. Becky Kennedy, and then Dr. Shafali Tabari. So those would be my go-to gurus of people that I've learned from over many years. Lots of audio books, lots of podcasts, lots of paperback books, lots of social media stalking, courses.
Yeah, talking about courses, can you share with us like any future courses and projects that you're doing that are coming up?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So for parents, I have a 3-week online parenting course starting on Tuesday, the 4th of July, from 7:30 to 9 for 3 weeks. And in that, we're going to be talking about self-regulation. We're going to be talking about power struggles, anxiety, and other big feelings. And then for teachers, anyone in Cape Town listening to this, I'm going to be at Herschel on the 20th of July, talking about coaching classrooms. Also, how to coach yourself, how to regulate yourself before you engage with the students in your care. But if anybody wants to follow me on social media, Tova, it's at The Connection Coach. I'm mostly...
I was going to ask you, how do my listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm dabbling with TikTok, on LinkedIn as well, and on Facebook.
Wow, no, thank you. Sure. I have to say your TikTok dance videos with your daughter is like such fun to watch.
we due to do another one soon. She, every now and again I say, oh, can we do one? And she says yes. It definitely is. It's a joy to do those with my beautiful baby girl Robin. And yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it.
That's really special that you have that connection with your daughter. Like, go you guys. I just with 2 more questions. Do you have a motto that you live by?
Yes. Oh. And this I get a little emotional when I talk about it, Tova, because this has changed my life. And it's 3 simple sentences. I'm safe. Keep breathing. I can handle this.
Wow.
I'm safe. Keep breathing. I can handle this. And the reason that I'm getting emotional is because I was on anti-anxiety medication for 14 years before learning these 3 little sentences. I don't have my card with me. I usually have it on my desk. Before learning how to rewire my brain. Because before I would say, oh, who does this person think they are? Or I'm not good enough. Or, you default into that. I'm not good enough, or they're not good enough, or this everybody's against me, or I'm the, and being able to catch myself in those moments of saying, I'm safe, keep breathing, I can handle this, help to give me that sense of safety and connection, so that I could then move on to having a more compassionate and kinder voice.
Wow, I'm actually quite emotional right now. Wow, Mandy, thank you. Like, that's so like liberating to see like how, well, go girl, you've come so far. Like, that's incredible. Like, that really is like a real, not just a pat on the back, but I'm just sending so many virtual hugs over on this chat show, because thank you for sharing. That is just like, and that's why you are the person you are today. And that's why you can give so much, because you've really worked on that Mandy, and that is the Mandy who we know today. And we are so grateful for having that Mandy in our lives. And I want to end off with one more question. Mandy, what will be your perfect day? Can you describe it?
My perfect day will be a day where I am with my whole family, somewhere warm, and where there's no access to any kind of digital devices, iPads, phones, TVs, and where we spend the day connecting, and we make a big meal together, and we probably have a great argument or some kind of robust debate, and then play board games or go for a swim, and then have a few drinks around another meal. So that would be my ideal day, is a day with my family with no technology.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful. That there's nothing like having a family to connect to and to spend our time with. I think family is what gets us through and what holds us, you know. So that's so special. Mandy, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on my chat show and sharing your wonderful ideas, and not just ideas, but ideas that actually have spread and changed not just children's lives, but ABC, adults before children. I think that's incredible. And I just want to wish you like the greatest, the biggest luck with everything you're doing. And you should just continue being successful and having the tools to be able to achieve what you need to achieve. And thank you so much. I just want to spread that on. And man, what you're doing is just carry on, please. You're like educating us all. So thank you so much. Sending so much love to you.
Thank you, Tova. Thank you so much for having me and for this very special conversation. And I hope that it's the first of many.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you till next time.
Bye.
Bye.